So this webinar session will focus on Windows Embedded 8 for application developers. This webinar session is performed in collaboration with our group on Adeneo Embedded. So AO is an embedded distributor. Karen, would you like to present briefly AO? Okay, so no problem. So I will present AO briefly for you. So AO is a distributor for Windows Embedded technologies. AO provides a range of services going from the training, technical support, licensing, hardware provider. So AO can help you to bring up your project and start your product development. So you can have local contacts from AO in all the areas where you live. So if you have any questions next week, and Dismiss will be probably with us, so you can ask questions directly to us. So this webinar will be split in 4 events. This is the 3rd event. Today we are focused on the connection Windows 8 connected system intelligent. So my talk today will primarily concern how to create, how to access to the cloud with Windows Embedded 8, how to create your system intelligent connected to the cloud, to Azure. So next session is planned next week on Thursday on 3 o'clock CET. So in next session we will talk more detail in how to configure your Windows Embedded 8 platform in more IT side. So a brief presentation of Adeneo Embedded. So let me introduce myself. I am Fabien Decret. I am a Microsoft Device Application Development MVP working from Adeneo Embedded. So Adeneo Embedded is a team of 60 engineers in Europe. We are in Europe and America. We are experts on Windows Embedded technology, system integrator for Windows Embedded. We are focused on activities on industrial markets. We deep involved with silicon vendors, expert in application development, expert from Microsoft with Word for the last past years. We have Adeneo Mobility, a brand dedicated to application development that will focus its activity on developing advanced multimedia embedded on mobile applications, targeting enterprise customers, OEM, and carriers operators. So let's talk about Windows Embedded 8 now. So today, main subject is access to the cloud from your real Windows 8 platform. So as we said last week, Windows Embedded 8 is a great platform for building line of business applications that increase productivity and allows your employees to interact with their PC tablets in a more natural way. So line of business applications are generally only deployed to users that take part in business operations for particular enterprise. So in additionally, what is the subject of today, line of business applications typically work with backend data server and targeted towards specific business processes. So let's talk about the agenda. So to begin with, I'll be speaking about what is Azure, a presentation of Azure, what Azure can bring to you. Then we'll examine how to interact with web services from your Windows Embedded 8 platform. After that, I will explain to you how you can add authentication to your web services. And finally, we will look at Windows Mobile Services, and to finish, how to encrypt your data in Azure. So, a small introduction. So this webinar is the third of a series of 4 webinars of how to take maximum advantage of Windows Embedded 8 in business environment. In this webinar, we will introduce features to create a connected environment. So, the capabilities of Windows Embedded 8 in this context. So I will show you some demos, some product demonstrations, and we will show how Windows 8 fits to industrial and business context in a connected environment. So first of all, we will talk about why to have a connected system. So the integration with infrastructure like Azure, Windows Server, or other cloud services is an integral part of Windows Embedded 8 devices. So with Windows Embedded 8, the manufacturers can guarantee that their device can capture data and are connected to a backend system that the data can be interpreted into insights and actions to create additional business value and enhance customers, employees, and partner collaborations. So all this ecosystem will create a connected environment, and all these connected devices and their connected environment are referred as intelligence system, connected intelligence system. So Windows Embedded 8 build devices can stay connected, notably for the power management system, the networking technology and transport medium. So for power management, you have the connection, you have also the connection managers, allow your Windows Embedded 8 system to stay connected to the network, being able to receive messages, updates, alerts. And concerning the network, you can support all the network technology, all the mediums, and including mobile broadband. So to resume, in short, Windows Embedded 8 covers notably the following aspects. So first one, connectivity. You can maintain constant data connectivity. You can secure your access to the data. Device management. You can use familiar Microsoft identity and access management technologies to manage your devices. Cloud integration. With the .NET Framework 4.5, you can access to the cloud, as we will show on next part. And you can maintain constant data connectivity. So now that we have an idea on what is an intelligence system, let's turn our attention to the cloud solution provided by Microsoft, which is called Azure. So what is Azure? Azure is a cloud computing platform and infrastructure for building, deploying, and managing applications and services for Microsoft Data Center. So Azure provides to users a lot of features like website, so you can build with ASP.NET or PHP on your website. You can access to it via FTP or Git or TFS. You can have access to virtual machines. So with these virtual machines, you get full control over a server in the cloud and manage it as your business requires. You can choose from a gallery of Windows Server with various pre-installed additional applications. You have the mobile services features. So mobile services features is a turnkey backend solution for your mobile app development with a scalable and secure backend hosted in Windows Azure. So I will show you a demonstration on mobile services in the second part of the webinar. You have the cloud services, so enterprise cloud platform to create highly available, scalable applications on services using a rich platform as PaaS environment. You can easily support your multi-tier scenarios, automatic deployments, and elastic scale. You have the features big data, so you can have a lot of space and storage to store your data, to your data management. I will detail each possibilities after. And to finish, you have media. So with the media feature, you can manage and distribute media in the cloud. So this feature also offering everything from encoding to content protection to streaming and analytics support of your media data. So with all these cloud services, you can quickly deploy and manage multi-tier applications. And in these multi-tier applications, Azure handles the details, provisioning, load balancing, health monitoring, and so on. And also in the cloud services aspect, you will have WCF SOAP services and WCF web services. You can create your web services to expose them to users. So now let's go in detail to Azure. So Azure, a host service in a Windows Azure consists of an applications that is designed to run in the hosted service and XML configuration files to configure your web services. So there are two roles available in Azure. So when you create your hosted service with Azure, you can create a web role or a worker role. So what is the difference between these two roles? So the web role is a role that is customized for web services programming as supported by IIS or ASP.NET. So this role is best used for providing front-end services. It enables you to create WCF service and hosting in Azure. Then you have worker role. So what is a worker role? A worker role is a role that is useful for performing background processing for web roles. So you should use this type of role when you need a background process that performs long-running or intermittent tasks. So data services provide the ability to store, to modify, and report on data in Windows Azure. So there's many ways to store your data in Azure. So you have Azure Table, you have Blob, you have SQL database services, provide storage for binary and text data. So Azure Tables can store large amounts of unstructured, non-relational, non-SQL data. And on the other hand, you have SQL database that can store a large amount of relational data. So you have to choose if you have relational or non-relational data. So now that you know how to create your web service, your WCF web service in Azure, we will see in detail the two types of web roles that you can create in Azure. So imagine you are in a retail context, for example. We need to expose methods and data to access to the retail environment. So Windows Azure offers multiple services to help to manage and expose your data in the cloud. So in the web role, so now we are in web role. In web role, you have two approaches possible to offer your data to the user. So you have WCF service, and on the other hand, you have WCF Data Services. So what is the difference? So we will begin with WCF Services. So WCF Services are operation-centric. You have to define functions, operations, for your business context operations. So it is based on SOAP language. So here it is more centric on operations. So the server has to implement everything that your client needs. For example, in a retail context, we need the following operations. You will get the available products list. For example, you want to add an item to your shopping list, you want to place an order, you want to pay for an order. So all these operations must be implemented on the server side. So on the other hand, you have WCF Data Services. So these web services are more data-centric. It enables you to create services that use the Open Data Protocol, OData, to expose and consume data over the web or intranet, which is based on REST. So REST is XML format. So by using this type of web service with entity framework provider, you can create data service for a SQL database. So unlike the precedent mode, the server doesn't need to know exactly what the client needs up front. So the client will be able to ask requests at runtime. So for example, in our retail context, the following data must be offered to the users. For example, a table of products, a table of orders, and a table of suppliers. So these two types of web services can be easily implemented with Azure. So we will see after how to do it. So to sum up, we've examined how to access data. I'd like now to focus on how to access to these created web services from a Windows Embedded 8. So it is integrated in the .NET Framework 4.5. So Windows Embedded 8 applications can call WCF services. Endpoints exposed by the WCF services provide an access to the functionality that the WCF service offers. So you can easily add a list of available services, and then you can expand the node for the services that you want to use and select the service contract that you want. Also, in Windows Embedded 8, like in Windows 8 Classical, all the operations generated for a WCF services will be asynchronous, using the task-based asynchronous pattern in Windows 8. So for the WCF Data Services, you can access to a service metadata document for open data descriptions, and it returns a service metadata document that describes the data model exposed by the OData feed. So the SDK, the Windows 8 SDK provides a WCF data service client based on LinkU and offers the possibility to generate proxy class directly in Visual Studio. And then, afterward, you have to instantiate the context-generated class. Then you have to build your request and then execute it asynchronously. So let's have a look on Visual Studio to show how it works. So I will share with you my desktop. So this is Visual Studio. So for example, I created a services with Azure. So my services have an interface. So I implemented the function get available products. add item to card, place an order, pay an order. So I can launch my Azure emulator in my PC, so I can deploy it on the cloud if I want. So my web service is now run. So now I can easily create a Windows 8 classical applications, and then I can add a service reference, and this service reference is on my retail service.swc. So with the metadata, I can have all the methods available from my Azure Web Services. So now I can generate automatically a proxy with all these methods that I can call asynchronously and call my remote functions. On the other hand, concerning the WCF Data Services, I have on NoData W services. I can discover it as the same, and then the metadata show to me all the category of data available. So for example, I have the table categories, I have the table products, I have the table suppliers. So with these tables, I can easily create REST requests with a put, get, delete on the tables to access in a more data-centric aspect to my data. So I will return to the presentation. So let's be clear, building a mobile applications, Windows Embedded 8 application on Windows Azure is structurally similar to building a client service applications anywhere, including websites for which clients are browsers. So what the relevant points to think are the security. So you have to identifying and implementing how your Windows application Azure handles security in general, and you have to make sure that your clients work with the security implementations of your Windows Azure applications. So you have three main points, as writing in the slide, to consider. So you have the authentifications, you have the confidentiality, and you have the integrity. So what is authentication? So authentication is the process of establishing a claim identity. So authorizations is a process of deciding and controlling the resources to which that identity has to access. Only an authenticated user can access to data. Only data held about them will be sended. So you have to think about that. So you have to add a token for authentication of each of your requests. For confidentiality, you have to use, for example, XML encryption of your data. For integrity, you can sign your sub messages to ensure integrity with WCF security, for example. So in addition, we will go deeper in authentications. So let's go in detail with ACS for managing user authentications. So in Azure, you have two approaches to authenticate your users. You can doing any sensitive work either after employing the Windows Azure control service to manage your credential handling with that service. So what is ACS? ACS is Access Control Service, and is a Windows Azure service that provides an easy way for authenticating users who need to access your services without having to set up complex mechanisms for authenticating into your code. So you have these solutions and you have another solutions, which is more complicated, is to implementing your own authentication component or services. So let's go deeper in ACS. So ACS is the Windows Azure Services features that allowed you to authenticate your users with Azure Active Directory access control. So it's an easy way to authenticate your users that want to access to your cloud services. So you can authenticate users from identity provider like Windows Live, Google, Yahoo, or Facebook, or Twitter. So for the WCF Data Services, you have support for OAuth 2.0 WS Trust with SWT simple web token that allows to authenticate your REST web services. And you have SAML token, which X509 certificates that allowed you to authenticate your SOAP web services. So how can I authenticate my web service? So you can follow these 5 steps to authenticate your web services. Step 1, you have to configure a relying party using the ACS portals. So this relying party can be, as I said before, Windows Live, Google, Yahoo, and so on. Then you have to create a service identity and configure it to respond to token response based on username and on your password. Then you have to implement a WS trust binding for an issue token based on a username and password. Then you have to create a WCF services, server side, and then on client side, you have to create a WCF client. So now let's take the example of access to authenticate WCF services. So I have my Windows Embedded 8 applications. So first of all, a WCF client submits credential to ACS and receive a valid token upon successful authentications. Then this token is presented to the W service for validations. If the validation is successful, the request is processed by the service. So with this authentication, each request launched from our Windows Embedded 8 applications includes a string authentication token given by the identity provider. So this operation was done for ACS. So this identity could be used with business rules at the level of the WCF Data Service. So these rules will be applied whatever the client. So accordingly, you can easily control access and editions of the data from client requests. And without token, the request will trigger a security access error. On the other hand, there is another collection of API available on the Live SDK, which is called Live Connect. So what is it? It's a collection of API that help you to integrate your app quickly and easily with compatible services from Microsoft, like SkyDrive, Hotmail, Messenger, and all that with a single sign-on. So what you have to do, you have to get the sign-in users' permissions from your applications, and then you can call the API you primarily use via REST protocols, REST requests, and it will return to you informations formatted in JSON. So this architecture enables you to support a variety of platforms, including web, desktop, or mobile. and Windows 8. So, for example, you can have access with this Connect to Live, so you can authenticate user and access to their profile informations. You can access to SkyDrive, to access to documents of medias of your users. Via REST request, you can create, update, read, and delete SkyDrive data. You can access to Hotmail. You can working with contacts on calendars. You can create and read a Hotmail user's contact, create, read, update, and delete the user's calendars and their associated events. So this API are available for C# and HTML5 JavaScript applications. So Live SDK is focused on identity-related features. So you have a component to authorize the user of your applications to enter their email address and their password. So you can see this component that allows to you to create a very quickly single sign-on feature in your applications. So furthermore, as an applications development and hosting platform, Windows Azure offers rich security functionality for standardized encryption protocols, so it is possible to encrypt data in the cloud. So via the cryptographic service providers that is built into the Microsoft.NET framework, so you can encrypt and decrypt your data from an Azure storage. You can easily save and win data from Azure storage that are encrypted from your applications. So now there was a toolkit, Windows Azure Toolkit for Windows 8, that is now deprecated. So we will now focus on this toolkit on these sessions. Just two words. During the early version of Windows 8, this toolkit provided developers first support for building bucket services for your Windows applications. So this toolkit was quite complicated. So due to a lot of feedback from users, Microsoft decided to create Windows Azure Mobile Services that directly reflect this feedback by enabling developers a simple way to provision, configure, and consume backend services. So let us see the possibilities offered by Windows Azure Mobile Services. So what is mobile services? So Windows Azure Mobile Services is a turnkey backend solution running on Windows Azure servers that offers different functions such saving data, querying, managing identity, and pushing notifications to your applications. So additionally, you can run scripts on the server to execute custom logic, your business custom logic on the server side. You can execute server script in JavaScript. So let's go in details how it works and with some demonstrations. So first of all, database access. So let's take the example of how to create a simple mobile data services access. So I will show you this with a small demo. So I will go to my Azure Mobile Services platform. So here it is. So mobile services allow you to create very quickly a backend solution. So I will create a new solution just for you. So I click on new. I want to create a mobile services. Create. So I can add an URL. For example, I will create a small demo which called to-do list demo 3. I can use an existing database and I can use a new database instance. So I will use an existing database instance. For example, I can use in North Europe, so I can use an existing database. So I have to put a login, I have to put my password, and then I have to validate the questions of my Azure Mobile Services. So you can see that I have a new mobile Azure Services. So it takes some time to create the database, to create all the connected environment in the cloud. So, okay, it's quite long. So I will use my existing demonstration. So it will use this to do it in demo. So you have your dashboard. So you have an integrated tutorial that you can create an application. So you can easily create a table. So you click on this button and you create a table. And then you can download and you will have a Windows 8 solutions that you can easily run with your connected applications to the table that you just have created. So I launch my Visual Studio. So I can close my Azure services. So I have my demo and I can launch it directly. It will be better. So we will go through the code. So for beginning, so this code will be automatically generated by the platform. So you can see that you have, first of all, a table. So this table is directly binding on my collections to my SQL table to do item in Azure. So this sets the binding to the collections of item in the to-do table, which contains all my to-do item objects that can be returned from the mobile services. So then I can have a method insertAsync to insert data in my database. I can refresh my data with a link queue request like this. And you can update your database with these functions. So as I said before, all the functions are asynchronous. So I will now launch my application. So I can insert an item in my database. So I can say I can insert hello webinar, save. So you can see that the hello webinar item is in my database. So I can go directly to my Azure interface. And I can see that in my database. Oh, I have an error here, so I can take on the other side. So I have the interface for accessing directly to the database. I have an interface to access to the Windows Azure platform, so I can see data. So I have 7 records. So I can see that I have the records hello webinar that I have just created. You can also look at the dashboard. So for example, you can see all your API calls, CPU time, data out, all the statistics from your backend service. You can access to your data. We will see after a push on identity. So I will go back to the presentation. So you can see how you can easily create a backend server for presenting data. Now let's look at how to add authentications in my web services. So it is very easy with Windows Azure Mobile Services. You can add authentications to the Quick Start project using an identity provider that it is supported by Mobile Azure Services. And after being successfully authenticated and authorized by Mobile Azure Services, the data associated could be displayed. So to do this, you just have to register your application for authentications and configure mobile services. You restrict your table permissions to authenticated users, and you add authentications to your applications. So you can, as ACS, add a supported identity provider from the list. So you have Google, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. You can back to the management portal, and then, as I said to you, you have to set your permissions to only authenticated user. So I can show you briefly how we can do this. So I have my data, so I can restrict my table with permissions. So now anybody with the applications key can access to my database, and you can check only authenticated users can access to your web services. And another thing is with your Mobile Azure Services, you have identity. So you can choose here the identity provider. So you have Microsoft account setting, you have Facebook setting, you have Twitter settings, or you have Google setting. So from each of these identity provider, you have to ask to him the key and the consumer secret. So now let's have a look and how to generate push notifications. So as we have seen last week, for push notifications, you have to use the Windows Notifications Server from Microsoft, Windows Push Notification Service from Microsoft. So Windows Azure Mobile Services has an integrated interaction with this server. So you can add JavaScript code on your server side. For example, your mobile services will send a push notifications when you want. So for example, for the demonstrations, I will show to you how to send a push notifications each time a record is inserted in the database. So what I have to do? So first of all, you have to configure your mobile services to integrate with WNS. So I will show you. So I go to my dashboard, I go on the push tab. So I have to put a secret key and I have to put a package SID, and then I can go to my data, and for example, I want a toast message each time I insert a data in my table. So I have to add this code in my insert trigger, and when I have an insert from the item for the user and the request, and I can push notifications, you already have all the toast template implemented, so you have to choose. So here I want to send a toast text 04, as I saw to you last week. I just have to save the channel of my applications on my devices. So these channels will be saved. I have to add in my database a channel a channel row that allowed to you to save the channel. So now let's have a look on the applications. So on my applications, I have to create a push notification channel each time my application is running, and then I have to when I insert my applications automatically. So I go on my application, so I insert a second item, for example, hello webinar 2. I save this item in my database, and you will see a toast message that comes directly from Azure. It is not a local toast, you can trust me, but it is a toast from Azure. So when I save, you can see this toast directly generated by my Azure side. So if I go on the Azure side, I can see on my data, you can see that you have in your database, here I have the URL of my channel of the application that I launched, and I have the hello webinar 2, that is the new item inserted. And you can also plan a scheduler, and this scheduler you can choose a script, and you can choose a period of the script, for example every 15 minutes that you want to do something to have access to your business data on your server side, and you want to generate, and you can generate via script, same as you can see, as you can realize in the insert or do what you want in your database. You can do it in a scheduling mode. So now I will go back to the presentations. We will be quite on late. So with mobile Azure services, you can see that you can do a lot of things very quickly, very easily, and it provides to you a very simple approach to create your WCF services integrated in Windows Embedded 8. So to conclude, you can see that we have seen that Windows Embedded 8 extends the power of Windows on the cloud to intelligent systems, as referred in embedded solutions. So Windows Azure provides approach to create your WCF services and WCF Data Services, as we show the two solutions available. And you can also use mobile Azure services. That is a very easy solutions to turnkey solutions running on Windows Embedded 8 and running server-side on Windows Azure that offers to you all connected features like access to data, like authentifications of users, like push notifications, how to generate periodically or via a trigger on the database, how to generate notifications. So you can generate toast notifications, you can generate type notifications. So all these features, all these connected features show you how Windows Embedded 8 can be now leveraged in the enterprise line of business applications. So that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. Next week we will see the Windows 8 technical strength in industrial and business context, more on IT side. So thank you very much for being here today, and see you next week. And if you have questions, don't hesitate. That's the moment I will wait for your questions now. Thank you.